Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Barakahak Wadash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who rule and teach well. And peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure unto the end. This is the brother Ra'aya coming at you with another lesson, and I'll be profiling this article from rollingout.com titled, Why More Black Women Are Dating White Men. The dating scene is witnessing a significant shift, but hey, reality and life as you know it is taking a significant shift. And this is nothing more than Eve and the serpent, continuing that, relationship, not physical, but, that spiritual relationship going all the way back to the garden. Because, at this point, brothers, for the majority of our women, especially that so-called black woman, the Judite woman of the Southern Kingdom, she looks at Esau, as her God. Hence why whenever Esau says anything, or, whatever Esau or the Edomites are doing, she picks his ideas and their ways of life, over what you want to do. And you always hear brothers say, you could compete at a high level, to please, the so-called black woman, while, a dusty Brad, using some of that red pill terminology, or, just a regular old Edomite can just show up with a bouquet of roses, and she treats him, like a high value man. But, like I said, we're witnessing a major societal shift and a shift of reality as you know it, because the so-called black woman and her daddy, the devil, Esau, they're both going down. Hence why you're seeing more instances of those two demographics getting called out, by other people out here, because, everybody's waking up to the fact, especially you so-called black men, you so-called Israelite men, that those are your two major enemies out here. But I don't want to ramble on too much. Let's get to these precepts. I'll go to Isaiah 28. I'm going to start at verse 14. Wherefore, hear the word of Yahweh, ye scornful men that rule this people, which is in Jerusalem. And, Jerusalem is a people before it's a place. So, talking about the entire nation of Israel. And, we use this verse to deal with, these wicked, false prophets and heads of these other camps, and just, these celebrities and political figures that Esau sets up to what? Be leaders for Jake. But it can also apply to you women as well. What does it say in Isaiah chapter 3? Women and children shall be their oppressors. And what does it say in Jeremiah? I've created a new thing in the earth. A woman shall compass a man. And with Esau putting these women, especially women of the tribes, on a pedestal, with feminism and these government benefits, what? You have these, the so-called black community is a matriarch with the woman at the head. And we see what dysfunction that leads to. Broken families, broken communities, women being whores, boys being emotional thugs or sodomites, just complete destruction. So, hey, this applies to you wicked women out there, you matriarchal leaders as well. Because ye have said, we have made a covenant with death, and with hell are we at agreement. And like I was just saying, our women put Esau on a pedestal, and he's their head and their leader. And that covenant goes all the way back to Eve and the serpent in the garden, which, let's get that account real quick. This is Genesis chapter 3. I'm going to start at verse 1. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field, which the Lord God had made. And that serpent isn't talking about a snake with legs. That's talking about an actual man and a nation of people, which were the wicked, the Edomites before they were known as the Edomites. And when you go to Revelation chapter 12, it talks about that great red dragon, which is, speaking of the Roman Empire, which we know was ruled by so-called white people or Edomites. And when you go further down, it refers to that dragon as that old serpent, in the garden. And the beasts of the field, we're talking about these other nations of people, living back then. And he said unto the woman, Eve, one of the daughters of God, just like Adam was the son of God. And, those were the righteous back then, who, were the Israelites before they were known as Israelites. You had nations of people back then doing their thing. But, the sons of God had the laws, statutes, and commandments. They had the orders of Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. And he said unto the woman, Yeah, hath God said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And that's not talking about apples and oranges. That's talking about, philosophies and practices and, spiritual ways of life out here. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And that fruit represented, the ways of the different nations back then. And the serpent came with his way to Eve. Verse 4, And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die, for God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And as it said, the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field. Just how Esau is slick with selling wickedness to people. He was the same as the serpent back then to Eve, because, he was right in saying, Ye shall not surely die, physically die, but, they would spiritually die, because back then, the sons of God, or the Adamites, only knew righteousness. You can say they were naive to wickedness. But when Eve, took of this fruit, or these different philosophies, her eyes were open to good and evil. That's when the sons of God started learning the ways of the other nations, the ways of wickedness, these other gods, which eventually led to the fall. And, the serpent was coming to Eve, selling it again, just how Esau sells things to, our people, especially our women. What did he say? Ye shall be as gods. And what does Esau promote? Feminism, where a woman is equal to a man, and, with this society can surpass a man. And what do these women call themselves? Oh, we're goddesses out here. We're the prize, completely throwing a monkey wrench in that heavenly order the Most High set up, with the man at the head and the woman underneath the man, and the children, underneath the woman, which is ultimately, under the umbrella of the man. And, that's wicked, Eve committed spiritual adultery by, taking the ways of another man and not following after the ways of her husband, Adam. But again, verse 5, For God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And he was right. The sons of God already knew the good, but then they started learning the evil, the ways of these other nations, which, as we're about to read, they led to that fall. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, just as Eve, in these times saw that feminism and women's rights and liberation and being equal to a man or a boss bitch looked good, and that it was pleasant to the eyes and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. And the eyes of them both were opened, and they knew that they were naked. They weren't innocent anymore. They felt shame because what? They learned the ways of wickedness, and they know they messed up. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. And that's them, starting to put on the ways of these other nations out here, just as our people would, followed these other, customs and religious practices and philosophies out here that clothe themselves with it. But back to Isaiah 28 and 14, and that covenant between Eve and the serpent, hey, fast forward all the way to today, you're just seeing it, laid bare for you right before your very eyes, with just how much that so-called black woman defends and fights for Esau and his system. She wants to be with Esau, and under Esau's system, what? She's allowed to be the head. She's allowed to be over her man and what? Belittle her man and put him underneath her feet. She's got all the power. But because ye have said, we have made a covenant with death, and with hell are we at agreement, when the overflowing scourge shall pass through, it shall not come unto us. Hey, you women, and just our people in general that want to cling on to Esau's system, you think that by playing ball, when this devil comes down in great wrath, he's not going to come after you because you've been a good servant upholding the system. For we have made lies our refuge, and under falsehood have we hid ourselves. Therefore, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, behold, I lay in Zion for a foundation, a stone, a tried stone, a precious cornerstone, a sure foundation. Hey, that's that cornerstone that the builders rejected, Yahushai, which, with Yahushai's sacrifice, he opened up that way of repentance for the nation of Israel to come back to the Heavenly Father, beginning with the elect. And, all praises to, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai. Yahushai is our intercessor. And, with, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, waking up the elect, and, the elect starting to go back to that old way. What are you seeing? Society being turned upside down, and everything that was thought to be normal being shown for what it truly is. That deceit of the serpent, of the wicked, Esau. And one of the main things, that the prophets of Yahweh Bahashem, Yahushai push is what? That heavenly order. And I believe it's 2 Corinthians 11. Yahweh at the head, then Yahushai, then the man, then the woman, then the children. The man being the patriarch at the head of the family, with the woman being subservient unto the man, which our women don't want to hear. Hence why you've got, such a backlash from so-called black women, not just to the truth, but to, MGTOW and these different red pill movements, because what? That the spirit that the prophets have been pushing, hey, it's putting that vibration out there, that patriarchal vibration, and a lot of men aren't taking the bullshit anymore. And a lot of so-called black men are starting to leave, the so-called black woman alone. You got passport bros and brothers, looking to other nations of women, which, that's a major factor into why you're seeing a lot of so-called black women start to date so-called Edomite men, because their own men don't want to deal with them anymore. And then on the flip side, you got a lot of these Edomites in the same position with their own women not wanting to deal with them, either dealing with Israelites or dealing with other nations. So it's a relationship out of convenience. He that believeth shall not make haste. Judgment also will I lay to the line, and righteousness to the plummet. And the hail shall sweep away the refuge of lies, and the waters shall overflow the hiding place. When that judgment comes, those that made a covenant with death, especially our women that want to uphold this system, hey, they're going to be swept away by that hail and those waters. All these different judgments, the famines, the pestilences, the race wars, civil unrest, but ultimately those nuclear missiles. And your covenant with death shall be disannulled, and your agreement with hell shall not stand. When the overflowing scourge shall pass through, then ye shall be trodden down by it. And you know what that reminds me of? That trodden down part. Micah chapter 7. Verse 10. Then she that is mine enemy shall see it, And, from the apostles and elders all the way down, hey, we constantly tell you, brothers, that, the majority of these so-called black women out here, because, you do have good, so-called black women. I've met some and I've dealt with some in my life. But for the majority of our women out here, hey, they're with the enemy, and they are our enemies. Then she that is mine enemy shall see it, and shame shall cover her which said unto me, where is Yahweh thy power? And, brothers in the truth have many stories of women they were dealing with, leaving them and scoffing at them, because of them believing in Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. And, they didn't want to get under that order and discipline. And when things, when trials and tribulations came upon a brother, the woman left them. Because what? For the majority of our women, they've made that covenant with death. Mine eyes shall behold her. Now shall she be trodden down as the mire of the streets. And remember what it said back in Isaiah 28. Then shall they be trodden down. A lot of you so-called black women and a lot of you other women of the tribes that have made that covenant with death, coming into Jacob's trouble, you're going to be trodden down like the mire in the streets. And, if you dealt with the man of the Lord before and screwed him over, best believe he's going to see that downfall. But without further ado, let's get back to this article. Why more so-called black women are dating so-called white men? And you're seeing that covenant with death being made, bare in recent months. And, it's a bed wench that wrote this, Jaya Jackson. And just listen to how she words things. In recent months, a captivating trend has emerged on social media showcasing black women joyfully in love with white men. This phenomena, often referred to as the black wife effect, has sparked conversations and debates across various platforms. And, Eve's, attraction to the serpent, it's a sick mental illness when you look at it. Because, when Jake deals with the so-called white woman or Edomite woman or woman with the other nations, Jake really doesn't put it out there to where it's called the black wife effect or it's a captivating trend or anything like that. Eve just pedestalizes it and writes books about it, showing what? That covenant with death. And this, again, is just Eve and that serpent's relationship going all the way back to the garden. Because through Esau, Eve has been allowed to what? Get one up over on the man, become those goddesses. The viral has sparked conversations and debates across various platforms. The viral TikTok videos highlighting this trend have not only entertained, but also prompted deeper discussions about interracial relationships and their implications. And a lot of these things is that you're seeing on TikTok and these other social media platforms is just propaganda and isn't even real. A narrative is definitely getting pushed out here, by these Edomites, because the serpent knew to go to the woman to take down Adam back then. So who does Esau go to today to take down our nation? Again, the woman, because the woman is the weaker vessel. And, Jake loves this woman. And, a lot of Jakes will bend over backwards for their woman just to keep them. So Esau comes with these philosophies, and Jake, in order to not lose the woman, will compromise himself. But coming into these last days, men are coming back into that, patriarchal spirit to where if the woman doesn't want to get in line, hey, you can go. And like I said earlier, that's playing in to a lot of reasons why you're seeing more so-called black women with so-called white men. Because, so-called black men don't want to deal with Eve anymore. So it's a relationship out of necessity. And for a lot of these, average Edomites, they can't get a Becky anymore. So they got to, settle with Eve. And then, a lot of these TikTok and social media relationships, some of them are being exposed as just a way to make money. Understanding the trend. Experts and influencers suggest that the growing visibility of black women in relationships with white men is more than just a fleeting trend. It reflects a broader societal shift where black women are encouraged to explore romantic possibilities beyond traditional boundaries, many are now considering relationships with white men, which may not have been on their radar previously. Blah, blah. Statistical insights. You can read that on your own. I don't want to make this too long. Expert opinions. Cheryl Giudice, which another so-called black woman, a bedwench, a sociologist and author of the book Interracial Relationships Between Black Women and White Men, argues that black women should consider dating outside their race. She points out that the demographic landscape has shifted, with black women outnumbering black men from the age of 16. And why is that? Because a lot of so-called black women delete their children. And who pushes that? Planned Parenthood, and all that. The Serpent. And then you got a lot of these boys getting raised up in thug and hip hop culture. So what? A lot of them die at a young age, and a lot of them go to jail. So of course you've got so-called, black women outnumbering men. While this does not occur for white individuals until age 32, Giudice emphasizes that this disparity in numbers may necessitate broader dating options for black women. And remember, growing numbers of brothers aren't dealing with the sisters anymore. And you can go up, look at the dating statistics for like dating apps like Tinder, and two of the least picked groups on those dating apps are black women and Asian men. Hollywood examples. Hollywood has showcased successful interracial relationships, further normalizing the trend. Iconic couples like rock star David Bowie and supermodel Iman, as well as filmmaker George Lucas and businesswoman Melody Hobson, two older groups of people, and some of those people are dead. And what's funny, on a side note, Iman, even though she looks like a so-called black woman, as far as I know, she's actually a Hamite, so-called African, not an Israelite. And David Bowie, even though he looks like an Edomite, in my opinion, he's a Israelite foreigner. So just some food for thought. Their relationships highlight that love knows no color and can thrive in diverse settings. Real life stories on social media, and that's almost like an oxymoron. Real life stories, but on social media, which a lot of that, again, is just propaganda and not, a real example of reality. It's sensationalized. Social media platforms, particularly TikTok, are filled with real life stories of black women and white men finding love. Influencers like Bria, who shares her journey with her partner Simon, have garnered significant followings, inspiring others to embrace love in all its forms. Comments from hopeful followers reflect a desire for similar relationships, showcasing the positive impact of these narratives. I'll read this last little paragraph right here. Advice for black women exploring interracial dating. If you're considering dating outside your race, dating coach Anwar White offers some valuable advice. Now listen to this. In a TikTok clip, he suggests that Italian and Jewish men, which, when so-called black women, for the most part, date so-called white men, it's usually Italian or so-called Jewish men, which, a lot of those Italians are Israelite foreigners, as well as successful artists can make great partners for black women. Interestingly, he highlights red-haired white men as particularly appealing, humorously stating, if you see one red hair, I want you to pounce on it because he's going to be checking for you. And what's funny is, I don't know what it is with those redheads. A lot of them might be Jakes too, but I found out, in my life that, red-haired, women are usually attracted to me, but that's besides the point. But what's interesting is that he mentioned, Italian and Jewish men. And I was watching a YouTube video the other day talking about passport sisses, so-called black women, going to European countries mainly, and especially Italy, to find love. And, a lot of them are complaining because they still experience racism, and a lot of those Italian men are just using them as a pump and dump. So, the grass is definitely not greener on the other side for Eve, but that's besides the point. Like I've been saying throughout the video, this more visibility of so-called black women and so-called white men is just, that relationship back with the serpent and Eve in the garden, being laid bare in these last days. And what? The two main culprits, the two main problems of society, being shown. And, like I've been saying too throughout the video, a lot of that stuff you see, with so-called black women and white men on social media or in Hollywood is propaganda, just to further drive that wedge between the Israelite man and his woman. And Esau, understands the curses and, plays on them, because one of the curses is that, our women would have an evil eye towards us. This is Deuteronomy 28:56. The tender and delicate woman among you, which with a lot of these so-called black women, you can't say that they're tender or delicate, which would not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground for delicateness and tenderness. And how many of these so-called black women got rough feet out here? Her eye shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom. Hence, why more often than not, the relationship between so-called black men and women is dysfunctional, and they're always at odds with each other. And again, Esau knows this, so he exploits it to further destroy the Israelite family and that bond, and toward her son and toward her daughter. And we also see that, the majority of these so-called black women have an evil eye towards their children as well. With the son, she's always belittling the son, saying, oh, you look like your father. You ain't shit. You ain't going to grow up to be shit. Remember Boys in the Hood? And with her daughter, a lot of these women compete with their daughters, to get the same men. It's just complete madness and dysfunction out here. But hey, we're at the end of Esau's rulership. So all this dysfunction is going down with Esau. And these wicked, Israelite women that want to continue that covenant of death with the serpent are going down as well and shall be trodden underfoot. And a lot of you so-called black women out here in these interracial relationships, with these Edomites, especially, these other nations of men, hey, you're going to be taken out during Jacob's trouble. This is Isaiah chapter 13. I'm going to start at verse 11. And I will punish the world for their evil and the wicked for their iniquity. And I will cause the arrogancy of the proud to cease, and will lay low the haughtiness of the terrible. And it says in Isaiah chapter 2 that all high and lofty looks and all proud looks will be brought low in that day, and Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai alone will be exalted. Because when Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai brings this judgment, this false sense of pride and status that these people, especially our people, and a lot of you women feel is going to be shattered when you're knee deep in these judgments and horrific calamities that are going to be taking place. I will make a man more precious than gold, even a man than the golden wedge of Ophir. And that's not just talking about any man out there. That's talking about an Israelite man, but an Israelite man who is of the elect, because they're going to have that protective hedge of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai over them, guiding them through Jacob's trouble. Just look at that movie, The Book of Eli. Eli was outnumbered and got into bad situations, but the Lord always got him out of it. And what did you see in that movie? Women try to flock to him for protection. And it's going to be the same thing during Jacob's trouble. That Isaiah 4:1, 7 women shall cleave unto one man. And 7 just means completion, so it can be any number of women. Hey, to you Israelite women out there that want to make it, you're going to have to start coming to terms with being a sister wife. That's just the reality of the situation you're going to be in. Therefore, I will shake the heavens, and the earth shall remove out of her place in the wrath of Yahweh of hosts, and in the day of his fierce anger. When those nuclear missiles are shot during World War III, they're going to cause the earth to rock to and fro like a drunkard. Now, let's see what's going to happen to bed winches and, swirlers and interracial relationship people out there. And, I'm focusing, mainly on the women, but this applies to you men as well. If you're with an actual, heathen woman and you're not with the Israelite foreigner that looks like a heathen, hey, you're going to be caught up too. And it shall be as the chaste roe, and as a sheep that no man taketh up. And that chaste roe is speaking of these Edomites, because during these race wars, while these Edomites are going to be fighting against you Jakes, and these other heathen nations are going to be fighting each other and fighting against Jake as well, everybody is going to want a piece of these Edomites. And as a sheep that no man taketh up, they shall every man turn to his own people, and flee every one into his own land. When the chips are down and this whole illusion of democracy and equality falls apart, people get tribal and go back to their own. And we're already seeing, nations of people start to leave America because the economic situation is deteriorating, and they're going back to their countries of origin. Or when all hell breaks loose on the streets of America, people are gonna, click up with their races. Just look at the Rodney King riots when those South Korean Moabites banded together to fight against you Jakes. And down here, a couple of years ago with Hurricane Ida, you got a lot of these Arabs that own these gas stations and sports clothing stores. They clicked up and got on their roofs with rifles to fight, you Jakes. So race wars are coming, and anybody that's caught in the crosshairs, hey, you're going to be taken out. Yahweh Shai said in Matthew 24, verse 7, nation shall rise against nation. Everyone that is found amongst another nation of people and not amongst their own shall be thrust through, put to deletion, and everyone that is joined unto them shall fall by the sword. Hey, a lot of you so-called black women trying to find love with the serpent. Their children also shall be dashed to pieces before their eyes. Those tear children you bring about, hey, they're going to be destroyed. Their houses shall be spoiled. People are going to be kicking in doors and taking goods, and their wives ravished. You're going to get ravished. And to you Israelite men, hey, that are living amongst another nation of people in the suburbs, and you got your heathen wife, hey, she's going to get ravished as well. And just you Jakes in general, even if you're a Jake family that's living in, again, a suburb or a majority Edomite neighborhood, hey, you're going to be one of the first ones they're going to be coming after. But, that's it with this video. And with this video, I hope it was edifying, and, I got to the point and didn't ramble on too much. But, to you sincere Akim and, you sincere Akwat out there, just keep pushing. We are almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharallah, and until next time, Shalom.